but conservatives are skeptical. I mean, frankly, I mean, I hope it turns into a pluralistic democracy in Egypt and elsewhere, but we're skeptical about some of the groups that are pushing that revolution, the Muslim Brotherhood, whose goal is not democratic. At least the older, senior leaders of that movement want an Islamic state like Iran, which is not democratic. And you know, we have to wait and see what happens in Egypt. We hope it turns into a pluralistic, representative democracy. But given their traditions and the forces, particularly of radical Islam, I wouldn't bet on it.
No. It's a very scary place right now. You know, you've mentioned Ronald Reagan a couple of times, and I've noticed on the cable TV lately they've been talking a little bit more about Reagan and going back and reviewing his life. Could you speak about Ronald Reagan a few minutes? Was he a great president?
Yes, I think he was a great president, a great American, the Gipper. Reagan was a traditional conservative and really believed that the strength of the country, the United States, was in free individuals developing their talents, being rewarded for their work, their enterprise, and so reducing the burden of government, taxation, regulation on people, that most of the great things that happen in history are by gifted individuals. Not a whole lot takes place in collectives, committees,
right,
large parties, you know, unions, I think tend to kind of water down individual initiative. And what you want then is allow the freedom for creative individuals, enterprising individuals to create and innovate. And if they invent something good and market it, to make a lot of money. Or they write a great book to be honored and get awards. And Reagan believed that to unleash the creativity of American individuals would help everybody, including the poor. I mean, it's terrible that we have poor in this country, and we have a lot more now in the last 2 years than we ever have had. But Reagan and Reagan-type conservatives believe if you lower taxes, increase private enterprise, obviously some people will get very rich, but it will actually benefit the poor too. The poor will be lifted up by a general prosperity, and will do a better job of helping the poor than a lot of government programs that distort the market and cause everyone to be poor.
And you say we have a lot more poor in the last 2 years. You attribute that to the Obama administration?
Well, the policies, I think, of you know, borrowing a lot of the state borrowing a lot of money, raising taxes, spending money on things that are not as productive as private enterprise would do. We've seen the rise of unemployment, the decline of business, you know, increased large, complicated federal programs like Obamacare make it very difficult for business to plan. If you don't know what sort of costs are going to be entailed in a big program like Obamacare, or the threat of increasing the capital gains tax or something, a prudent person will not stick their neck out, will not risk their capital in an atmosphere that is likely to cause them to lose money. You can't ask anyone to do that, to do things against their own interest. And so I think part of the slow economy is that business is afraid of this administration's regulation of business, high taxes, Obamacare, and what Reagan did was to cut back on government regulation, lower taxes, and we saw a boom that lasted 20 years. Started in the mid-'80s, went through the 90s, one of the greatest booms, job creation. And so yes, I think part of our problem, again, it's ironic to say you're for the poor, and we're all for the poor and helping the poor, but the way to do that, the poor in the United States are better off than the poor in any other country. If you were a poor person in the world, you'd rather be poor in the United States than any other country. So I think what we want to do is we have to have government programs to help the neediest, the least among us. But we have to allow that engine of free enterprise, the engine of business and competition and creativity, to grow the economy.
How much do you think this new Republican in Congress is going to be able to accomplish?
I think they're going to accomplish a great deal, not as much as they want, because of course they don't control the Senate or the White House. But first they'll stop any further movement towards increased liberalism and socialism and socializing the economy, which is a plus. They will probably prevent any new increase in taxes. And so I think they will restore confidence in the business community to some extent, but they won't be able to do a great deal in really cutting the budget or really reducing government regulation.
Well, many people have said, and they do not understand how you can not tax that upper 2 or 3% of the very wealthy people in the United States. Tell me the Republicans' point of view, if you know, and that's a difficult question maybe. What are your thoughts about the tax on the very wealthy and increasing the tax on the wealthy? Tell me your thoughts on that from a Republican point of view, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'm not an economist, and I don't have all the exact figures, but in fact the wealthiest do pay the largest percentage of taxes in this country. And American corporations have the highest tax rate in the world, so really the wealthy are paying the majority of taxes. I think you don't want to raise them any further because the question isn't whether you're wealthy or not, but how you got that wealth. And going back to our founding fathers and the British philosopher John Locke, we believed in this country that we have natural rights, rights from nature, and nature's God. And those include life, liberty, and property. They're natural rights. They're rights from nature and God, not from the state. And so the state shouldn't take them away. If someone has earned their money, whether it's in business or labor or whatever, however they've earned their money, as long as it's honest, they have a right to that property. Now the state has a right, in our tradition, to tax everyone to provide for the protection of their liberties, protection of life, liberty, and property. But that's primarily defense, police, courts, things like that. And so more and more taxes for things that really are not related to protecting natural rights, at least conservative Republicans would think is really unfair and really counterproductive, because again, the way you get people to work hard is the hope that they will succeed. And if they do succeed, they won't have a majority of their income taken by the government and given to someone else. So it's really a matter of fairness to us too. The inheritance tax, everybody says, well, you know, why should somebody who never worked or earned money come into $1 million inheritance? You know, when somebody who wasn't fortunate enough to have a wealthy father or grandfather doesn't come into that. Well, that's coming at it from the wrong end. That's coming at it from the wrong angle. It isn't the fortunate person who inherits $1 million. It's the person who had the $1 million who has the right to leave it to whomever they want. If you want to leave your estate to your children, you should have a right to do that and not have the government take 50% of it or 80% of it and give it to somebody you didn't even know.
Right.
So it's more the right of the individual to do with their property what they wish, including leaving it to whom they wish and not having the government take it all and give it to somebody else. So it gets back to basic natural rights, and that's the philosophy of our founding.